I just want to give to the general fund. I just want to give it to the United Way, and you guys use it the best way you possibly can in my community, right? They can also say, I want to choose dollar by dollar where my money goes. If they do that, they get some help, in working through that decision. It's a complex decision to make. There's hundreds of agencies just in a city like Pittsburgh, let alone if you're somewhere like Atlanta or something like that that's a much larger community. So really, you can go through and they'll recommend some. And the recommendation engine, we talked about it, for here, just a test user. But in the past, when they start to really show they're able to pick interests and show past donations and who they've given to in the past, it'll start to recommend, well, here's agencies like the ones you've given to in the past. Here's other things in that same area or line of help that they can start to give to. So in this case, it shows you up here you have $240. You haven't given anything yet. Right now, if you hit submit, it would all go to the United Way, $240 to the United Way. As you go down through, you can start to see, you can learn more about what they call the impact fund. That's their general fund. But you can also see focus areas. So instead of just giving a giant list of agencies, from a usability perspective, we start to categorize these, right? So help people recover faster. We want to help children, seniors. So you can start to expand these and learn more about agencies that are in those. And then you can also down here search for agencies specifically. So if you want to stay just by your zip code. So you live in a certain part of the city, you just want to see people in that zip code, or agencies in that zip code, you can search just by that. So here, let's say we want to help seniors. We can say, I want to give, let's say, $50 this year to seniors. So once that happens, that selection is made, and you can see at the top, your bar starts to turn orange, that you've started to fill that up. And then you can just start to select others. So I want to empower people with disabilities. I'll just say I want to give the rest to that. And you start to see this fill up the entire way. You can back out of these selections and those kind of things. But it really helps people to understand, now they have a much closer, to the dollar and where it's going relationship with the United Way. They feel like they're making a lot more of an impact. And when they do that, they just go through some basic selects and they complete their gift and those kind of things. So we don't do that because I don't have a payroll hooked up to here. But you get the idea. And now this integrates back into their payroll systems, into the financial system of United Way, and then back up into Salesforce again, so they can check in throughout the year. And they start to get, in the future, they'll start to get announcements about the agencies they donate to, and more mail campaigns. They're really now starting to use Marketing Cloud, Exact Target, to start to push that out, and they're doing that at a worldwide level as well. So again, this is built over top of communities. They don't know that. They wouldn't know that. But the United Way folks on the back end can certainly log into Salesforce. They now see them as contacts in Salesforce automatically. They see their donor history. They see their activity history. They see how many times they've logged in, when they've logged in, how long they've stayed. They can start to see some intelligence like that. And then in the future, they have the option to open up that community for different reasons. So if they want to have people collaborate around volunteer events and add that onto their volunteer management and things like that, they have that option in the back end. Or as if they had gone with a custom web app or something, they kind of have to start that over again on the community side. So this was a good way to do it for now. And I think they're really starting to scale and grow how they're using this. And like I said, we have a number of locals across the network using this, and worldwide as well. Any questions? Sure.
Have they been monitoring who's logging in from their phone versus the web, like how usage is based on form factor?
Yeah, I don't have those stats, but they can track all of that. Yep, browser type, device type, session length, how many times that person's logged in, have they logged in from multiple devices themselves, all those kind of things that are things that they're going to be tracking. Yep. For those of you who didn't hear, she was asking how they track type of user and device and things like that that people are using when they use the app.
For the one-time gift option, is it do like a credit card checkout?
Yes, so for one-time gifts, it uses credit cards. I believe they're adding in PayPal, but I don't think they have yet. They use an app called Chargent for that, C-A-R-G-E-N-T, to process the payments on the back end from Salesforce.
Are you guys using the new GAUs to tie into the funding?
The GAUs.
The general allocation units and the starter tax. Oh, no, you said they were on 2.
Yeah, they're on 2.
They're still on
Yeah.
2.
Yep.
Right.
That's a good question, though, because we have some other large locals, actually one larger than Southwestern PA, who are using this, and I think they're going to use 3, but I don't know that they've got this far yet. I have to check on that. If you want, I can get contact info and give you that info if you want it.
Besides the information coming over and what they selected, is there any collaboration with the business to get any other information about the constituent, like let's say age or title or role?
Yeah, so as far as other demographic information or other activity information on a donor, so I didn't go through the whole thing there, but they do have some information on the donor there. It's very sensitive when you're dealing with workplace giving, because the corporation themselves, a lot of times, is really sensitive about sharing their employee information. So you'll see different levels there. So it's got to be able to be kind of, I'll say, least common denominator out of the box, and then ability to add that from this particular app. But when we start talking about other agencies internal or other groups internally, be a middle school mentor, Open Your Heart to a Senior, they're collecting a lot more of that information. And I think it's a good example because in the past, you'd have, let's say I gave it a workplace, right, through my workplace. So SUMA has a United Way campaign. I make a donation through there. United Way has me as being a donor there. And then next Saturday, I go and work at Open Your Heart to a Senior, and I rake someone's leaves, right? Now those people at United Way have my information as a contact, and I go do something else later in the year, and I share on social, on Facebook, something else about another United Way event. I'm showing up as different contacts in all these places in the past. Now they're hooking all those things back into the same contact record internally, so they can start to collect those, not through this app, but through other things, through other ways. And they're connecting all the dots, if you will, which before Salesforce, it was a bunch of, I don't have the thing up, it was this. So me personally, I might be in 12 of those things, but none of them were really connected very well. So you'd have a bunch of people working on spreadsheets and trying to manually decide who should we send emails to about this, who should we contact about this upcoming campaign, those kind of things. Other questions? Sure.
Do you use campaigns then to manage like multiple leads?
Yeah.
So like you have one for critical, like all the different workplaces all in campaign, or?
The workplaces themselves are not. Those are more an account model. And then, so when we use campaign, it's a vocabulary word that's a little bit confusing in the United Way world. Campaign is what they call literally their pledge drive. So that's that campaign. And it's assumed that every company that's in here as a workplace donor is going to have that campaign. But they also use campaigns in general they do a lot of event management on here. I think it was on the, sorry, I'll go back to presentation mode. So for things here, they're using event management kind of through this entire thing. They use campaigns and campaign members for attendees throughout the whole thing. They also use campaigns for what you would think of traditional campaigns, mailings and events and other things like that. They do have annual records for the 2015 campaign, 2016 campaign at the accounts and that level too. Also, that's interesting.
Does it integrate with their finance system?
Let me show you. So their finance system and a lot of the local United Ways use a back-end system that for financials and ERP-like called Andor. So Andor was built exclusively for the United Way network, but you could compare it to other kind of financial systems built for certain industries and things like that. And it does integrate back to Andor. So a lot of the locals that use this, they were using Andor for a lot of things in the past. They really want to use Salesforce now for engagement and use Andor for the tool it's best at, which is financials. So it's key to keep that and keep the integration there. I will say one thing where nonprofits can burn a lot of budget and sometimes in unexpected ways. Like for instance, that system has a very, I'll say, unique data model that's been built over a number of years and put on top of itself. So you start to run into, we want to integrate that data, but you got to approach integration in a very intelligent way. Integrate what you absolutely need to integrate in one direction, bidirectional at that time, but do it in a way that you can build on it later. Because when we got into the nuts and bolts of this of the Andor data model, it just sucked up a ton of time. And that's one of the major advantages of the accelerator. Now that's kind of figured out, the mappings are there. But anytime you're going into a back-end system like that that was built especially bespoke for your industry or your company or something like that, it can get very complicated in how to integrate it and when and what's available, does it have APIs, et cetera. So as you're approaching these kind of projects, I would just say get a lot of detail on those things and really understand sometimes it's extremely complex thing to do, and make sure you're right sizing that for what you need for that exact project. Don't go overboard on the integration to start. Other questions? No? Okay, I don't know where we are on time. Was that enough or too much? 1:05, what time are we supposed to go to? 10 more minutes. Any questions? Or we can break early too. Good? Okay, great. If anyone, I apologize for Dallas not being here. If anyone wants to get in contact with Dallas, he leads this and is a leader in the network, lives here in Atlanta. Let me know and I can get you his contact information. Thanks. Sure.
I'm a user recruiter for Atlanta nonprofits.
Oh, he would love you guys.
I can take people where we have like vendors doing presentations, and we're trying to really just get nonprofits that have actually done something, show
Yeah.
us what they've done. I'm actually.
He's a great one.
What?
He's a great one to do that.
Right.
And he
So
loves
it would be
talking
great
about
to
it.
have- It would be great to have, in fact, in May, we have a meeting coming up that is, that Salesforce is gonna do.
Oh, cool.
And they're gonna do a presentation on communities. And I thought maybe if we could get him to do a presentation, we could have two.
Here's like a different
panels.
angle on community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be
absolutely.
interesting. I mean, I have to talk to my co-lead, who's two of us. I just thought, it would be nice to have a nonprofit.
Absolutely. You know what?
I know
If you
do
don't
my
mind
part
too, I'd love to connect you with. Happens to be a Suma employee now, but he was not until recently. He runs the nonprofit in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
So
okay.
connecting you guys would be great
Sure.
because I'm sure he has things he'd love to. It's a new one. They just started earlier this year or before the end of the year.
Okay.
We've had fantastic attendance
Oh,
at the nonprofit user group. But
Yeah, we're a small group, we're growing. And
Yeah.
we're trying to, you know, it's hard to find interesting presenters. It's just, it's hard to find presenters that are trying to sell.
yes,
And so we just want to have people see, possibility, and especially the communities, because I actually
How's it going?
How'd it go?
Pretty well.
Great.
And I finished early, which is, I don't know that I personally have ever done that before.
Oh,
So,
way to go.
although I was supposed to co-present with someone, and he got stuck in another city.
Really?
So I'll say that the fact that I finished about 9 minutes under, since he was supposed to present for about 25 minutes, means I actually went
Oh, yeah, okay, well, you don't tell anybody.
a solid 20 minutes over. That's the HDMI cable. The
Okay.
power thing is way back in there if you need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Adam, I had a question. You threw a slide earlier that said that United Way was trying to strive to be more,
You're the next person.
I am, yes.
more personalized to their constituents.
They really want to have personal relationships. And they kind of have this like this layer of the corporation.
How's United Way defining that?
What you mean defining what personal needs versus?
Yeah. Are there certain metrics that they have identified that says, okay,
Have a good rest of your day.
start populating, if we can start harvesting this data for constituents?
I haven't been to one of these yet. Is there a sign that we should start? Because it's after 12:30. We're gonna wait for people to roll in from lunch instead. Were the sessions good this morning? I couldn't make any of them. Yeah, good stuff. We gotta wait on the video. I don't want them to miss anything. Is everyone here local in Atlanta? Who's not local in Atlanta? That's pretty good. Where do you guys come from? North Carolina? How many people from North Carolina then? All right, that covers a lot of it then. Anyone farther away than I'm from Pittsburgh, so I came a little ways. All right, that's getting up there. Okay. Wow, that's going to be the farthest, I would imagine. There was one of the speakers is here from London, though. So I don't think anyone's going to beat that. Do you want me to get started? Or we can start? Okay, great, okay. You look like you were adjusting that, so I didn't want to mess you up. All right, well, that's too bad for you. All right, so welcome you guys. Unfortunately, only half of me is here. So I'm Adam Menzies. I'm from SUMA. Dallas Smith is the CIO of the United Way in, used to be called Allegheny County. That's the logo you see, but I didn't get the new one. They now call themselves Southwestern PA. They've joined with some other United Way locals in Southwestern PA. But Dallas, oddly enough, he lives here in Atlanta. So we thought this was a great opportunity to speak and kind of tell the story. He's actually stuck in Pittsburgh. So I left Pittsburgh earlier this week. He's still there. So I'm going to kind of play Dallas Smith as well today. But he's in Atlanta. If any of you would like to connect with him, especially those of you that are local, I can certainly give you his information. He's very anxious always to talk about the work they're doing as a leader in the United Way local network. Okay, so we'll go with that. First, I think the standard, we couldn't get a safe harbor slide, so we have this instead. Thanks to all our sponsors and everyone. Make sure you say hi to everyone out there and thank these guys for putting this on. So quickly, kind of what we're going to go through, we'll kind of I'll introduce who I am and the role Dallas plays. And then, why are they focused on constituent engagement? Why is that such a focus? They've had a business model in place for a long time. Why the change now? How did we form a strategy around doing that well in a very different way than the United Way had done in the past? Where are we now in that journey? Where it started. It started a few years ago, but in real, concentrated fashion, it started last spring. So it's about a year. And where are we in that journey? And then I'll demo an online pledge application that they've built over top of communities. So you guys can kind of see what that looks like. We won't get into the nuts and bolts of the Salesforce side, but I'll make sure you're connected with Dallas, and you can certainly ask him all those kind of questions of doing that as a nonprofit admin on his side, outside of this. Okay, sound good? As I said before, I'm Adam Menzies. I'm the director of the Salesforce practice at SUMA. SUMA is a consulting firm. We do certainly Salesforce. We do a lot of other things as well. We're based in Pittsburgh. We're up and down the East Coast. We do have some people locally here in Atlanta and Charlotte, so we're down in this area quite a bit. But we really focus on, I think you'll see through the presentation, kind of putting people at the center of the solutions we're designing, not paying so much attention to the technology. Our assumption is, when I lead Salesforce practices and my team, the way we approach it is we're pretty certain Salesforce can solve that problem. They've kind of solved a lot of the hard technical things. We can build on top of that. But really, we just need to solve business problems. And that's the beauty of Salesforce. Lets us do that. This is who the United Way of Allegheny County is. So they're going through a brand change right now. They also call themselves the United Way of Southwestern PA. They've joined with some other locals. It's important to understand, I think you guys know generally who the United Way is, but understand how they work as a business. There are 1,300 locals in the United States. They also have a worldwide organization that's based in DC that acts as a corporate head to those locals, but they are organized by the locals up. So it's a very, local-driven organization, and they self-organize up to the worldwide level. So that can be good, right? It gives you a lot of freedom to do what you want, and the worst part of that is it gives you a lot of freedom to do what you want from a technology perspective. When you go around, 1,300 locals, you can probably find on the order of 700 or 800 or 1,500 different technology models if you get to probably dig deep enough, right? So when you want to really make change across the network, and that was the goal here when we started this, it was we want to do things to change the way Southwestern PA is working, but we really want to change things across the United Way network. That's a huge challenge, and technically, culturally, change management at a corporate and a local level is really challenging. So we'll go through some of those things. Before I go too far, though, is anyone here associated with United Way? No? Does anyone give to the United Way? You don't have to actually say, but like maybe your time, right? Like, really, and been involved in the United Way, been impacted by the United Way, right? So it's a pretty broad, far-reaching organization. I think a lot of us come in contact with it, but we don't really think about how it works behind the scenes to make all these things happen, right? So one thing that was great for me, myself, and our team, we got to really, and have seen how a lot of the locals and the national organization works and how hard it is to, make these things effective in these communities. So as we worked in, like I said, we've been working with Southwestern PA for quite a while, 3 or 4 years on different things, small projects here and there, helping them with some design and other things. But last year, they really want to get into how do we change how this is working, how we're, engaging constituents. So when you look back, they had some challenges. These challenges are common to all locals at the United Way level and probably a challenge for a lot of local nonprofits in general. They had extremely heavy reliance on workplace giving. So basically at the end of every year, you choose your health benefits and those kind of things. You also at that time are given, like choosing to be an organ donor, right? You choose how much do I want to give next year, auto payroll deduction, or do I want to give a one-time gift to the United Way at the end of the year? These companies have, for you guys like Coca-Cola or someone, right, would have an agreement with United Way. They run an internal campaign, and you give it, and in the old days you would see a thermometer chart somewhere in a hallway or in the break room, and they would color in, as they got donations. Their reliance on that workplace giving was tremendous, and what they would see is they would have about 20% churn of donors just off the bat because people just leave jobs, right? They just leave the workplace. And when they would leave the workplace, they would lose all connection with that person. They didn't have, unless the person had, deliberately made a relationship, they were losing a lot of those things because the relationship was based on them being an employee at that place, not really with the person. And then they would go do other jobs that maybe didn't have a relationship with the United Way, and then they would pop back up 5 years later at some other company, and now they were a new person. But in today's world, that person would look at them and say, well, I've given to you in the past. I gave to you for 8 years at my other job, and now I'm ready to give again. And they aren't recognizing that. They're not having the relationship. They're not really understanding that individual and what they want to do, what organizations they had given to through the United Way in the past. The younger workforce not only changing jobs a lot, but really wants that personal relationship with who they're giving their time and money to, who they're recommending their friends do that to, and really want to see the results of that. They want to be able to, in real time, mobile, social, whatever way, see where did my money time go and who did it impact and how much, right? So that's a big challenge, and especially for a nonprofit that has all these things kind of trying to keep the wheels on while, the lights on while you're going, and making really fundamental changes like this. So they wanted to focus on really changing to personal relationships out of workplace relationships, but focus on the individual. So get a relationship with them outside the workplace, get them to interact in other ways, through other systems, through other events, through other platforms. That's going to expand, technically, the database requirements they have dramatically. Because it used to be really more relationships with Coca-Cola, and then they handle a lot of the employee relationships. We may handle some payroll stuff for them, but really they handle a lot of it, and we just need the key person at Coca-Cola we have a relationship with, we're good. Right? Now we need a relationship with 20,000 people. So the database and the logic and the workflow implications are enormous. So to set a strategy for that, we really set 5 principles. And I think these can be for any real local or even national nonprofit. It was changing from a selling to a relationship model, really trying to understand that person, what things are important to them, not only the money or time they give, but why, to seniors, to young people, is it to disadvantaged youth, is it to animals, what is their passion, and how do they share socially? Mobile, just be where they are. Make it simple. When you are engaging with someone, nonprofit or not, the most valuable real estate in the world is the home screen of their phone, right? If you can get there as an app, then you're locked in. And they expect the same kind of performance from you and from your enterprise apps, from nonprofit apps. They expect the same performance they do from Uber or Facebook or any of the others they use there. You know, connect with individuals outside the workplace. We talked about that a little bit, and really empower donors. Let them choose where their money goes specifically, dollar by dollar. Where does it go? Not just United Way. For those of you who don't know, really acts as a, they organize a lot of agencies and other groups behind them. They take in a lot of funds and then make sure those groups are funded. So letting donors see where it goes through that network and exactly where each dollar goes and the impact, and then make it social. Let them start to do peer-to-peer giving. Let them run their own campaigns. Let them start their own movements on the United Way platform and brand it through United Way, but let them have control over how that's being done. The other issue, and you'll see this a lot at older nonprofits, older enterprises in general, right? You have a ton of technical debt. So over the years, especially at a nonprofit, things have been added. You have small groups of people trying to make best decisions they can at the time. You've got a lot of options where you have free or reduced price. So you start adding a lot of apps, especially in an environment like Salesforce. You can really start to haphazardly add things without having a real plan. And then you end up with, this is one example of their tech diagram to run this relatively small nonprofit. From a technical standpoint, that was a lot of stuff, right? And it's not just going and rip stuff out and start putting new things in. You've got to keep businesses going and agencies going while this is happening. So we had to spend a lot of time really being clear about how to rip things out in a very methodical way and put things back in a more efficient standpoint. And we ended up at something like this. This is one of the strategy documents that came out of that, and it was really about building, and remember now, a goal of Southwestern PA was they want to build something and then share it across the network of the United Ways. So they wanted to build things that were modular, so they could share each piece, donor management, volunteer management. I'll get into those in a minute. And then they wanted to be able to build a recommendation engine next to that to be able to recommend next best actions, next best communications with a certain individual. They use a mix of a custom software and some exact target marketing cloud as well. And I'll get into kind of the tools they're using in a second here. Leverage things they already do well and leverage the network. So we show a couple locals there at the bottom, but remember now there's 1,300 of those. There's worldwide at the top. And how do you pass that data up and back down? Because as you all know, like with big data, you really start getting the benefits when you actually have something that's approaching big data. And most of these locals, though they may have 250,000 donors, that's really not big data. Right? So they collect as a national or put it up to worldwide and really start getting some real big data and start making more intelligent decisions with that. Improve engagement and really understand how to share information across the network. So what they did was they started slow, but this kind of gives you some idea of the architecture. They built this accelerator, co-built it with Summa. We've taken it to other locals. We're working with a number of locals across the network now. And United Way is Southwestern PA is one of the leaders in this space in the United Way network. What they've done is they start at the core. I think a lot of people, if you're in a nonprofit here, you know Nonprofit Starter Pack. They're using Nonprofit Starter Pack 2.0 at Southwestern PA, a one-to-one account model. There are others that are using 3.0, and we're doing this on there as well, and a lot of them are moving to the household model. I don't know if any of you are making that decision. Anyone here running NPSP? You guys? Yeah, and what account models do you
Moving from 2 to 3
Okay.
to the household account on the account.
Yeah, yeah, and in the past you had to do that a little differently, and 3.0 is a lot better at the household side of it. It's good. You guys, any luck with either?
We've gone from 2 to 3 and are about to do the household migration.
Okay, was that the main driver for moving to 2 to 3? Yeah, that's what we've seen too. I didn't know if anyone else had other reasons.
Yeah, I'm on the Nonprofit Starter Pack Advisory Board, so I can
Oh,
really speak.
there you go. Well, come on up then.
But yeah, there's no reason to stay on two.
Yeah, yeah. It's back to this slide here, right? You have a technical debt issue. Where are your priorities? Where do you want to spend your money? There's really good reasons to move 2 to 3, but is that the best? You have a list of priorities that are 100 things long. Where does it sit on that, and what are you going to get ROI out of that movement? So it starts on nonprofit starter pack, and then there's some base level Salesforce configuration, and it's really simple stuff, actually. This is not complex configurations. But what they started to do was look at a modular model so they could start to share each piece across the network. Because as you go local to local, some locals, honestly, don't have a lot of, say, high net worth donors, but they have volunteer management. So they wanted to be able to share this in a way, that other locals could kind of pick and choose where they invested their money from a function standpoint. So they have program management, and that's built on Salesforce communities. Online pledging is also built on communities there at the top, and I'll demo that app in a moment. Grant management, they actually use an App Exchange app for this as well on top of this. So Glider is a grant management app that they use for that. Constituent relationship management, it's basic CRM instead of, CRM, not the customer relationship management, constituent relationship management they do there. And then mentors and volunteers, they use Volunteers for Salesforce, which is another one that a lot of people in the nonprofit space use, and certainly a lot of locals use. Any questions on this? I know this is super high level, and I'll demo some of the app in a moment, but save them for the end. So Salesforce is now certainly southwestern PA and a lot of the locals across the country and the United Way worldwide as a corporate body. It's really their platform of engagement. Now, these are some of the things that southwestern PA has done. So in that modular fashion, you start looking at those things, they start laying on top of that functional groups. So now you have the ability to do donor management, high net worth management, relationship management, and then they start to say, okay, for our middle school mentor program, for our 2-on-1 program, how do we start laying on functionality on top, functional groups on top of those layers of functionality? So 2-on-1, be a middle school mentor, United Way, the Tocqueville Society, which is like high net worth donors for that local. Open Your Heart to a Senior. This is an interesting one, the Open Heart to Senior. It's really like the eHarmony of their situation. So you have seniors who need help with certain things. I need help getting my groceries. I need help with my lawn being cut. I need help with any number of services. And they have volunteers who just want to do stuff, right? Like, I'm willing to do work outside. I'm willing to drive someone. I'm willing to do these things. And I'm in this I'm in this side of the city or whatever, right? So they start matching people up with people that need help. And then that is a screenshot of the mobile app that I'll show in a moment. Right now. Okay. So I'm not going to do this on my phone. I'll just do it here. But what this is, so the United Ways have an interesting problem where they have a lot of donors, as you saw earlier. Just Southwestern PA is over 250,000 people that donate in some way to the United Way. But they all typically do it one time a year. So from a Salesforce perspective, you have a couple options. You can build a custom app somewhere else or a custom website somewhere and then integrate it into Salesforce. You do that on Heroku, other places. Or you can go communities. And they decided for functionality, for workflow process reasons in the back end, and for future use, they want to use some other things in there as well. They decided to go customer communities. It's login based, so they'll have 100,000 people log in November. And those people may never log in again until next November, or they may log in one more time that year. Now, certainly the goal is to get them to log in more and more throughout the year, to be checking status and what they're doing and what programs are going on, what volunteer opportunities there are. But to start, they knew they had a very high number of people logging in a very small number of times. So they're using login-based licensing for those of you that are helping to kind of make those kind of decisions. So they buy their logins in buckets, and they assume a very high volume in certain times of the year and not others. Over top of that, we built some very simple, it's not simple, but simple to use from a user perspective, responsive apps and interfaces over top of that. So it's not a native mobile app. It could be placed into that kind of a container, but it's a mobile site. We didn't think at the time, again, looking at an investment standpoint, it wasn't worth building mobile apps for every operating system. Natively, even if they're cross-platform, it was better to just go web because these people were using it once or twice a year. The app itself is to be used in a workplace. So workplaces, some of them want to be able to skin and brand the app for themselves. So if you get Coca-Cola, they want to be able to make this some Coca-Cola branding up here along with United Way and put in their own taglines and things like that. So these can all be customized very easily by the companies themselves, put in their own graphics and things. But what this becomes is a way for them to show, and Coca-Cola could have something here about a program internally. This is a generic one that's kind of just for demo purposes, but it really tells them, they can start to look at ways to support local community, to target their giving dollar by dollar. They can specify individual dollars and where they go. And then they can also search for things. So it's important, a lot of times in the past, there's a United Way kind of general fund, but during campaign season, a lot of agencies are working on their own initiatives, or they really want to be found out, but they may be new or people don't know about them, and they want to know who's in my area of the city, who's in the things that I'm really wanting to give my time or money to. So once they're ready with that, they'll start to sign in, and this is a test user account, but this would be their workplace account. So we can do single sign-on through this, so if they have a workplace account they sign in with, we can do that as well. They log in, and again, they can do this on a phone, tablet, anywhere, a web browser. If this is, it'll respond to how they are. I just have it set up to look somewhat like a phone here. So again, a thing from a usability perspective, since they're only logging in once, maybe twice a year to start, we make sure every time they log in that it gives them their user information and they have a chance to update that. That seems somewhat annoying when you're demoing this, but in reality, when they're only doing it once a year, it makes a lot of sense from a usability perspective. So they can go through here. They can actually give in a one-time gift, so if they just want to give a lump sum of money at that point, a credit card or those kind of online payments, they can do it that way. Most of them are going to be using Giving My Payroll. That's where it asks if I want to update my information. So what they have here, and they can see themselves in their profile, but they start to look at, okay, how do I want to donate, at what frequency, and then how much do I want to donate? So they can choose a number of pay periods, and they can start to add, donation. This is per pay period, so they're not going to want to do that, but maybe, let's say $20 a pay period, right? And they're going to give $240 a year. So they continue, and they start to get some information about, okay, if you're going to give that much money, how can you make an impact? Where do you want to make an impact at? So they start to see, I'd